Hi, today we will be learning how to use multimeter. Multimeter is basically this stuff. There was a pretty cheap one online, so I got it. Let's go to the desk. So, when you buy a multimeter, if you're a beginner, always buy a manual range multimeter. First, learn how to use a manual range multimeter, then you can go to an auto range. I buy the cheapest in this case. So I bought the cheapest. So I got the cheapest with the most functions. So here I got a cheap multimeter which has manual range and all the different functions which you will need for a beginner. It also has this little nice stand over here. Stand that up. Let's learn about how to use the multimeter itself. So how do you connect the probes? If you see here, there's voltage, ohms, and milliamps. This is the one that you will use for everyday usage. And there's 10 amp DC. The COM port will always have the black probe in it. The COM port. COM stands for common. So the black probe or the negative probe is the common probe here. Now your red probe can go between these two holes. Some multimeters can have 4 holes, while some like mine has 3, while others have just 2, like the Fluke 101. I'll show you that in another video, but then yeah. The red probe for everyday usage will go in here. If you somehow accidentally connect this red probe here, it might cause a short circuit which might blow the fuse. But if you see here, 10 amp max unfused. This one is unfused, so be very careful if you connect this, so it might blow your multimeter. This one is 600 volt max fused. Cat 2 600 volts. Cat is the protection of your multimeter. The higher the rating here, mine is a Cat 2. I mean, it's a really cheap model, so obviously you get a Cat 2. There's Cat 1, which is a very bad multimeter. Do not buy these multimeters. Cat 1 is very dangerous. There's Cat 2, which is meh. And there's Cat 3, which is the standard. Most people buy Cat 3. And there's Cat 4, when you really don't want to damage your multimeter. If this multimeter was Cat 3, this would be fused right now. You might be asking me, in the beginning of the video, I asked you to buy a manual range multimeter. Why? So that you can learn about more of these values. This is a voltage DC, and here is voltage AC. In voltage DC, we have 200 milliamps, 200 millivolts, 2 volts, 20 volts, 200 volts, and 600 volts. 200 millivolts means to measure voltage at 200 millivolts or below 200 millivolts. Now, 2 volts measures voltage at 2 volts and below 2 volts. 20 volts, same thing, at 20 volts and below. And 200, 600, also the same thing. Now, let's say you're measuring something which is a higher voltage than the specified numbers here. As long as it is under 600 volts here, 600 volts max, as long as the voltage you're trying to measure is below 600 volts, you're totally fine. Let's just say I want to measure this 1.5 volt battery and I put it in 200 millivolts. So this is a 1.5 volt battery, this is full, and I'm going to connect the 2 probes at each end. As you can see, it shows 1. 1 means that the voltage I selected on the multimeter is too low. So to overcome that situation, let's put it in the next highest voltage. As you can see, now it's actually reading the voltage. 1.4 volts, as you can see, 1.49, which is technically just 1.5. Let's just turn on the LCD here. Yeah, there we go. And if you put it in 20, it's going to move the decimal point from here to here, and 200 from here to here, and 600 you're not going to have any decimal point at all. Now, make sure that the voltage you're measuring is below 600 volts. Right? Make sure for this specific multimeter, make sure it's below 600. So mine's at 20 right now. Yeah, there, 1.49, which is the correct reading. So the higher your multimeter is up the scale, these scales, the less accurate it gets. So as you can see, my multimeter is at 600 volts. So this battery is 1.5 volts. And now if I connect these 2 probes, it's going to read 1, and another time it's going to read 2. 1, 2. There, you can see 1 and 2. Why? Because voltages below 1.4 volts will get rounded off and to 1 volt, and voltage with 1.5 volts or higher will get rounded off to 2 volts. Right? If you don't know what's rounding off, get out of this channel right now. Just go learn what that is. You need to go back to elementary school. Anyways, you have volts AC. Now volts AC is used to measure your mains power. So here you have 200 and 600 volts AC. So definitely it's not going to work with a DC battery here. As you can see, it's giving completely different results. Completely off. Alright. So don't use the AC measurement to measure DC voltage. It's going to give you wrong readings. Now you've got your amperes. Here there's a 10 amp mode here. Measuring amperes, make sure that anything under 200 milliamps can be measured with these. Anything above 200 milliamps is going to show a 1, aka an error that your thing is too low. So in that case, you need to select 10 amps. But what do you do when you select 10 amps? We're going to discuss that in the next video. HFE, NPN, and PNP are used to measure stuff like transistors, a few ICs, etc., etc. Then you've got your continuity test. Here it's showing 1, which means there's nothing connected yet. So your continuity test tells you if the thing is conductive or not. But then don't confuse that with resistance. Resistance is the measure of how a substance opposes the flow of current. Continuity, let me just show you something. So here's a loop of wire I got here. Let's connect one probe to this end of the wire and the other probe to this end. As soon as I connect these two probes, you will hear the multimeter beeping. And the value will be set to 0. As you can see just now, the value touched 0. Let's just really put this in here. And this side, there. 1, 0. That means that this wire has little to no resistance, or that there are no breaks within the wire. Continuity test is used to identify where the wire is connected. For example, in complicated circuits where you can't see the wire and it is a circuit, you can use this feature to find out where one pin is connected to the other pin. Like for example, in this IC, you can figure out where one pin is connected to another pin here. Let's go to the resistance now. Let's put this here. As you can see, the value will quickly change to 0.00, okay, 0.8. So this has a resistance of 0.8 ohms. Now let's take a carbon rod from a battery here. Let's measure the resistance. Now the thing with carbon rods is that it's very variable resistance. You can see when I come closer to the probe, it reads a low resistance, 1 ohm. Take a look at that. When I slide the probe from this end where it's closest to the probe, to the COM, to this end, you can see the resistance is increasing and decreasing. See you all next time. That was the end of the video. I hope you liked it. If you liked it, please subscribe and share this video to someone else to spread the knowledge. Okay? Bye-bye.